John, we're not in Vegas
Jason,
anymore. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm
You all
all
right?
right, keeping it
You
together
look good.
over here. Thank you. You're looking well as well. I was looking at some previous shows. I think you've lost some weight over time. You're looking fit.
Depends. Depends on the
On
day.
what? Oh.
Sometimes I eat, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I eat too much. Sometimes I forget to eat.
Now,
It's
John, I don't know.
it's interesting. You and being with you.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, no, you go. Can you hear me? You got me? Can you hear
yeah,
me?
I'm back. I'm sorry. Yeah. I was
No, no
double
problem.
echoing here.
What were you going to say about?
I'm back.
Yeah.
Oh, when you and I were running around in Vegas together, it's interesting. The amount of food that you consume is
Me?
remarkable to me. You have a metabolism that like a cheetah. I mean, it's amazing. I mean,
I've been told that since I was a
it's
little kid, actually.
unbelievable, unbelievable how high a metabolism you
Food is
have.
delicious. I like
I
it.
mean, I think I ate two pieces of pizza and you ate the rest, right?
That might be
And we'll
true.
and we'll and we'll share the rest of the story some other time. But
Oh yeah. No,
mhm.
no, that
Yeah,
was
we'll talk about that another time. But we've got a real interesting show. Last week for our patrons at Patreon and Subscribe Store, they got to see you and I out in the desert shooting a couple different weapons, a couple different rifles,
right.
and we're going to talk about this week in the show some of the lessons learned as a result of your experience doing that.
Yeah.
Right. So now
And let
that
me
you've
just
had a
real quick.
chance,
Sorry to interrupt, John, but just
mhm,
real quick. There were
yeah,
some people. We chose to share the gun portion of the video on subscribestar.com/, patreon.com/, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, because there was a legitimate concern that displaying firearms and shooting firearms would create some, cause of action for YouTube to shut off the video or pull the video or whatever. And I gotta, most people were polite, always. Most people are polite, but there's always some person who wants to inject nonsense and put rude comments there. And they're like, oh, you can put this on YouTube. I don't understand why people who dislike us want to see more videos of us. If you hate us, just turn off the show. And if you like us, become a sponsor on Patreon and Subscribestar, and then you can watch it. People want these videos for free, but the bullets cost money, travel costs money, the time, everything. We can't do this stuff without the sponsorship of the generous viewers who make this show happen. So I hope that people will go check out that special episode with John and I in the desert doing some firearms training. You can see it on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. So what are you going to tell us about the quantitative? Like, I learned, you know, that shooting a sniper rifle it's a hell of a thing.
well, it's sort of two separate topics, right? So, topic number one is the lessons from what you experienced out there in the desert, right? And now that you've had a chance to handle these two different types of weapons, right? So, let's kind of point out to the audience that one of them is a long range gun similar to the 308 that was found in the room. And in fact, I think I sent you the fit report. So we can show everybody the fit report because that's really the connection here.
Yeah.
And now that you've had a chance to shoot the stuff, looking at the evidence in the room that the LVMPD provided, which is in the fit report from Las Vegas, we're going to see some things that now should stand out to you. And you should say, well, wait a second, that makes no sense. Now, if you go into the LVMPD's fit report, and I think you're looking at it right now, that's it. And we just scroll through, I think it's 2/3 of the way through, you'll get to the photographs from inside room 32, 135.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple things in the room, and there's a number of things in the report that really jump out at us, right? And a couple of the things are the things that are missing from the room. And now that you've had a chance to do what we did, I want to share some aspects of our experience with the audience.
Sure.
Right?
Let me just find these
So
images and then we'll bring it back up because
you're
it's a
almost
long
there.
report. I'm glad we're going
You're
back
almost
to this. We looked at this fit report, when it was first released, but being in Vegas and talking about Vegas, we're kind of renewing some of the people who maybe missed it, people who are still interested, want to hear more about it. It still remains basically an unsolved crime, but here are the pictures.
All right, so we want to go inside the suite where we see the weapons and where we see the body. So we're still in the hallway. That's the hallway. And yeah, so now we get into the suite, but we want to get closer to, all right, let's get one more shot or two. There we go. Let's go a little deeper into the room. Next picture. Okay. All right. There we go. There we go.
The other thing, John, while we're looking at this, I want people to just make note of the nature of the quality of the lighting of the room. This looks very much to me like an authentic, cell phone or digital snapshot camera. A lot of times police take evidence photos with pretty simplistic cameras. I mean, the days of having a police photographer with a 35 millimeter thing who goes back and develops it, that's gone. It's on a phone, it's on a little Canon ELPH snapshot, whatever. And the lighting looks very realistic to me here for that type of camera. We'll come back to that comment later.
Okay. All right, so a couple of things I want you to notice, and this is a good shot right here, is how the guns are strewn about the suite.
Pretty unsafe.
Okay. Not just unsafe, but they cost a lot of money.
Right.
And these aren't the cheap ones. These are the expensive ones, meaning, if you can buy them legally, you're looking at a lot of guns here that are $2,500 a piece. Wow. Without any add-on stuff, just out of the box. They're $2,500, $3,000. There's Daniel Defense stuff here. There's Sig Sauer stuff here. There's all kinds of fancy stuff. So the point is, these aren't cheap. And you see how they're being taken care of in the room? Like they're thrown about like with no regard, right? Let's go to the next picture. Go to the next picture.
I just want to add something here, John, because, I always, when looking at this scene, setting aside the evil nature of what happened in that room, this is something somebody planned. It was a complex event that was, based on timing and having equipment. And in that regard, it was very much like setting up a film shoot. And this is something that I've done a lot, where you'd stage in a hotel room, you'd bring in your crew, you'd bring in your equipment. And as you're pointing out, you wouldn't just throw the cameras and the audio equipment all over the place. You get it into the hotel, you organize it, how you're going to use it. And I mean, I haven't really... Right. Well, no, that's not true. We have done a shoot in the hotel suite. And when you do that, you're even more careful about having the stuff organized in the room because you're going to use it. And you don't want to spend 10 minutes looking around for where's that cable, where's that memory card.
Let me pose it to you this way. Now that you've spent time with me at a hotel with my weapons, would you ever expect to walk...
clipped and snipped and used against us?
All right, I don't care. So the point here, I mean, I stayed in a hotel and I had rifles, right? So again, this is part of the experience. This is part of the lessons learned from this, right? One of the things I thought was funny was I arrived at a hotel in Las Vegas, and as I'm unloading my vehicle to put some stuff up in Jason's room, Jason says to me, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? You can't just walk up there with a gun in your hand." And I said, "Jason, it's a guitar." Right?
Yeah, you had that.
Did that not happen? Didn't that happen?
It did.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So you are so predisposed to thinking anything that was in a black zipped up nylon case coming out of my vehicle was going to be a gun. You assumed it's a gun, but it was my
But it
guitar.
was narrow for a guitar, right?
But it was a guitar. And
Yeah.
you jumped to the conclusion. Now, this is another illusion, right? You know I'm bringing guns with me. You know we're going shooting. You know, the audience didn't know that. But you
Right.
knew this when I arrived. So when I start unloading my vehicle, you jump to the conclusion that the black case that just came out of the car is a gun. It's not. It's a guitar. Okay, now let's take this a little further. What other lesson did we learn? How did I feel about leaving my guns in the car?
Couldn't do it.
Not comfortable. Not comfortable, right? Now, was my intent to shoot and kill anybody? Of course not. And what I want the audience to understand is that the country, the United States, and other countries are filled with competitive shooters, people who shoot competitively a number of different types of stuff. They shoot shotguns, they shoot pistols, they shoot rifles, and they shoot various different calibers, right? From little tiny 22, which you shot in an AR-15, up to the bigger calibers. And they shoot short range and long range, and there's women's only stuff called Annie Oakley. There's all kinds of different sports. And when the people at the highest ends of these sports compete, they travel.
Right.
And they travel with their guns. And they don't kill anybody. Okay? So this goes back to something I said on last week's show. It's my belief that most people are good. Most people are law-abiding. Most people, if they saw a crime, would report it. Most people, if they were in a position to stop a crime, would. And most people are good and law-abiding. And there's a couple bad apples.
Mm-hmm.
That's
John,
my opinion.
I want to just inject one little piece of advice for our audience. We've had a number of strikes happening. The John E. Hoover channel is back in action, so we're simulcasting this live stream. People who aren't yet subscribed should search for John E. Hoover on YouTube, accept no imitations, and subscribe to the John E. Hoover YouTube channel. Thanks to the over 100 people who are watching us on there right now. And please make sure you join us after this YouTube segment for our sponsor exclusive segment on Subscribestar and Patreon.
All right. Why don't we go back to the room? Let's go back to the photos of the room. And I'm going to tell you guys what I think happened, because the reason I invited Jason to come with me out to the desert and go shoot stuff was because I think that's what Stephen Paddock thought he was doing.
Right.
And it's legal in Nevada to sell rifles privately.
It's also legal to shoot in the desert when you go to the right place.
You got to be in the right place, and
Which
it's
we
legal
spent a lot of
to
time
open
getting
carry.
to.
Yeah, indeed. And you have to, it's also an open carry state. So you are allowed to open carry in Nevada. And you don't have to be from Nevada, by the way. Okay? You don't have to be from Nevada. So if you're from California,
New York,
and you're allowed to open carry in Nevada. Okay?
What about if you're from New York and you don't have a gun license?
Well, again, there's different rules, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not giving advice. However, somebody who owns a rifle and lives in Nevada is allowed to sell that gun privately.
But not to a felon or not to somebody who would otherwise be illegal to own a gun.
No. And, nobody would knowingly do that, right? But
smart person.
But when you and I went out to the desert, there was I wasn't trying to sell you a gun. Right? No. My guns weren't for sale, right? I said, let's go out to the desert and shoot some, Mountain Dew. Let's shoot some Orange Crush, right? Let's shoot some
Oh, I was so
styrofoam.
upset the high-speed camera missed that. I wanted to
It's
see the
okay.
Mountain Dew
We'll
explode
do
in
it
slow
again.
motion. I mean, it's
You know
difficult.
what?
You know, when you set up a
When
remote
you
camera
loop
that
back
doesn't have
around,
an operator or monitor, you need to presume
yeah,
it's not going to record. That's my rule of
we'll have,
filmmaking.
we're going to have to get an intern to man your cameras. But
Call
on your
Bill
way
Clinton.
back around the country, when you're back looping back around, we should go to one of the famous ranges. There's like a really famous place in Ohio called Camp Paris, or Paris, I think it is. And there's some really famous ranges, and it would be really a lot of fun to go do something like that, and give you another, an opportunity to show everybody what you can do. Because now I think you got the bug. You were pretty good at it.
Thank you. Yeah, I got some
But
messages, kind messages from people complimenting me. I haven't had a chance to respond. Driving around makes it even harder to answer emails than normal. I just want to give you a little message that we got here in on the YouTube chat from Pat Max saying that Paddock had those orange target things you'd see outside in the desert. Why would he have that to shoot
yeah,
up the concert? You had
well,
one of those.
exactly. Yeah, I brought them. We didn't end up shooting them, but yeah, I got a couple of those. So again, I want to share with the audience what I think you're looking at when you're looking in this room. So when you're looking in 32-135, what do I think we're looking at here? So let's go to the next picture of 32-135. Let's see what else we see in the room that kind of jumps out at us. And then we'll get into the quantitative analysis stuff. All right, so again, if you walked into, let's say I had a hotel room, and you knew we're going shooting the next day, and you walked into the room and you saw this, what would you say? You say,
I
what the hell
say,
are you doing?
looks like a mess.
What is this? Right. These are expensive guns. What are they stacked up on each other like this for? All right.
And what's
So
this
what
blue
this,
hose?
that's a whole nother story. That's like a distraction. I don't know. But the net of it is whoever did this with these weapons had no respect for them. And whoever did
Almost
this
as
with
if they
these
were somebody
weapons,
else's guns, you mean? And they just threw them around and
yes,
they didn't care?
right, Yahtzee, 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 Yahtzee. So the point is, when you see guns on the floor, you see guns thrown around like this. If those were Stephen Paddock's guns, and the LVMPD and the FBI tells us that they were, and that he bought these legally, are you kidding me? Would you expect to see any of my guns stacked on each other like this? Never.
No, you were
You
very
know,
careful with them at
they've
all
got
times. And
cases,
they're
right?
obviously
Yes,
expensive. That
and
sniper
these are
rifle
more
looked like it
expensive.
was super machined. And I mean, it's just
These are
obvious
more
that it's
expensive.
expensive.
All right, go to the next slide. Now let's go to the next picture because there's more stuff here that's going to become more clear to you now that you've had a chance to go do this. Let's go to the next picture.
Mm-hmm.
Next one.
This one?
No, keep
It's like
going.
a hairdryer or something.
Yeah,
There's
we're
the
looking for
hose.
guns. We're looking for guns, and we're looking for that living room shot. No, keep going. There's a living room shot. No, don't need that. Don't need that. Counted those. Nonsense there. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. All right, so let's start with that. You fired a long-range rifle that is not as powerful as a 308. The round that you fired in that long-range gun was slightly smaller, less weight, and the gun itself weighed more than the 308 that was found in 32-134. The 308 that was found in 32-134 is a Savage 308. And the Savage 308 is a hunting rifle. And what that means is it doesn't have that much weight to it. So when you pick it up, it weighs nothing compared to that beast of a gun that you were shooting, which is heavy, which is designed to absorb the recoil. The lighter the gun is in weight, the easier it is to go hunting with because you're walking all through the forest and stuff. Mm-hmm. But when you finally do shoot it, it has more kick, Remember when you
But
went to the range in Florida and you shot a
yeah,
little pistol and a big
with Larry
pistol?
Johnson. Yeah.
Okay, so the big pistol was more comfortable to shoot, and the little pistol feels like you got a firecracker going off in your hand. Right? It almost hurts when it shoots. Right? It snaps. Right?
I just
It's not
remember it
as
was very
comfortable to shoot.
uncomfortable in my hand. It was like shorter than my hand, and I didn't like it.
Right. Well, typically smaller guns have less weight, and the recoils felt more. The big 9mm guns with a lot of weight to them
Right.
absorb a lot of that recoil, so they're easier to shoot. Same thing with these long guns. The 308 hunting rifle, which is what the Savage 308 is, it doesn't weigh that much. And what that means is the amount of recoil on the gun in this room was greater than the gun that you shot. That's the point. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where exactly would you, there you go, Savage 308. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where would I go
Now,
to do what?
in the room, so go back to the shot of the bed. So now they tell us that the 8 shots were taken at the tanks from that room with that gun.
Uh-huh.
From there. All right. So now the gun has a bipod, but where you going to lie down on the bed?
Yeah, you'd be right
And
here at the window. We're probably standing now. Although that gun's so heavy, you can't
Okay.
really hold it.
All right. So, and it's not, well, the one you shot is heavy. This one is okay. You could stand and hold it and fire it out the window. You could do it, but those are long shots, right? Now the tanks are 48 feet tall and 78 feet wide. And supposedly, the shooter from this window missed those tanks 6 of 8 times. Okay. Now, you didn't shoot 770 yards yet.
Right.
But next time I get you out there, we're going to get you at 800 or 1,000. And you're going to make the shot. And you'll see missing a 48-foot tall, 78-foot wide object is almost impossible.
Well, even from what we already did, it seems, I was having a hard time with the AR-15 because I think you said the scope wasn't dialed in or whatever. Or no, that didn't have a scope. The sight wasn't properly sighted in. But the scope one, I was aiming right for the bullseye, obviously, and it came pretty close. I mean, remarkably close considering my lack of experience. But how could you miss that whole entire tank?
Well, that's exactly. That's why we did this. So your experience, having done this for the first time with a weapon of that nature, right? To shoot
a target
high
like this
power,
big.
and you had 2 shots this close to each other. I mean, this close to each other. I mean, you were easily 300 yards away, maybe 350, 400, but easily 300. And you got 2 shots this close. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
At 300 yards, 3 inches is 1 MOA.
MOA?
So one minute of angle. And you put 2 shots within 1 MOA at about 300 yards your first time with a big gun. And that's a big deal. That's huge, right? So then the question is,
wait, should I go into some like Jason Bourne program and go into that machine where Captain America?
I think the people who watched the video already think you did do that already because they were watching it going, how the hell did he just do that? Is this Jason Bourne? I mean, is this Jason Goodman? Who the hell am I watching here? So I think there was some of that. No, really, you were kind of a natural at it. You did really well. So the net of it is now you have this understanding of what it's like to shoot something that powerful and your ability to keep it on target and put it where you want to put it. And so missing a 48-foot tall, 78-foot wide object is kind of crazy. And when you and I were walking around in Vegas, when we walked over to the tanks, that's when it hit me. The only plausible reason that I could think of, and I'm not saying this is what happened, I'm saying that the only plausible reason I can think of to fire an incendiary 308 at the tank would be knowing it's not going to penetrate it, but when it hits, I'm going to see a little white light that's going to go.
Why would they want
And
that?
because I'm trying to get my crosshairs zeroed in at distance on a downward shot. So if I'm trying to zero in at nighttime, you give me a big white surface and I can put my crosshairs on it, shoot, and I see a white dot where the bullet hits. I'm now
Sighting
going to
in the
move my
scope.
crosshairs. Correct.
But
I'm
why
going to
would they
move my
wait until the
crosshairs now
night of the attack to do that? Why not prep up all the guns and have them ready?
because sighting in your scope at on a downward trajectory at that kind of distance, where the hell are you going to get to do that?
Oh, I mean, is it because even just if you're a super expert, the act of putting it in the car and moving it to the hotel and taking it out, now you need to resight it right before you shoot? Is that the idea?
Everybody that I know, and I know some great shooters, their guns are set up to shoot level, not to shoot from the 30 something floor.
But
And
isn't
so
straight
when you
straight?
take when you take the gun out of the bag, the scope should be set for zero wind and a certain distance straight. So whether it's 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards, 600, whatever you shoot at, right? You've got your crosshair set for there to be no wind and for a certain distance. Now, that big gun that we took out,
The
that
wind was
set for
clearly a factor. Blowing on me,
wind.
the ability to hold
Yeah.
it straight.
Yeah. So the wind was a factor, and that gun had been zeroed for 1,000 yards, which is 1 kilometer. And we were not shooting at 1,000 yards. So
No.
we had to bring you closer into the target and that kind of thing. So that's what we got to do. So this process of zeroing in a scope, if you're taking a shot from above, where are you going to get to do that? There's no range you can go to practice that shot. Right. Right.
Dude, I love how you're breaking this down and I mean, of course, we don't know if this is the answer.
No,
but
I
this
don't know
is
that's
a
what happened.
brilliant hypothesis that somebody who is not an expert and doesn't know about this kind of stuff wouldn't even be thinking along these lines. And again, I mean, if I wanted to deceive somebody about some aspect of a visual effects shot or a 3D movie, it would be very easy to do because you know nothing about the technical aspects of it. So if I'm the FBI or the LVMPD and I want to tell you such and such about a gun, I think the average person walking around knows very little about guns.
Well, that's how they blame this thing on bump stocks, and they just got that reversed a week or two ago. But there's more to this. Wait, there's more to this. We'll come back to the bump stocks and all that. But let's go back to the big gun, and let's go back to the picture we had in the room. And so your experience shooting this thing. Now let's go to the next photograph because there's more to this. So we just talked about sighting in the scope, shooting an incendiary round at a big white tank and using the big white tank. Now, you shot a big, powerful round with the big gun at a steel target, and you hit that steel target, right? And the thing jumped out of the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? And the thing jumps out of the air. And we got to look at that. The people who are patrons over Patreon and Subscribestar, they see that, right? We hold up the steel, and you see that you hit the steel target, right? But the steel didn't get dented. The steel, and you shot that at less than 100 yards. The paint came off, but that was less than 100 yards, and that round was going about 3,000 feet per second, maybe a little shy, maybe 2,800 feet per second when it came out of that gun. So that was flying. And you hit steel, and all it did was take off the paint.
Right.
All right. So If you gave me a 308, which is almost exactly the same size as what you were shooting, just a tiny bit larger, and it's incendiary, but I'm shooting at 770 yards, it's not going to pierce anything, but it's going to go.
And
It's
actually,
going
an
to make
expert
a
would
little.
know that, right?
Yeah, I mean, guys in the military would know it. Guys who train a lot with that kind of stuff. The thing is, the incendiary stuff is kind of rare. It's kind of military only. Nobody buys this stuff, and somehow this guy Douglas Haig got in the middle of it making this stuff. Oh, where and how did that guy get in the middle of this? I have no
But
idea.
why? I thought people love shooting and exploding exotic things. These look like lipstick.
These are
Why
expensive.
wouldn't people?
No.
That makes
yeah,
sense.
the one. Yeah, these are different. The lipstick ones are different.
Super incendiary tip.
Yeah. So the white tips are Ralphus armor piercing. There you go. Armor piercing incendiary. And that's what they found in the room. Nobody has this stuff. This is like military grade stuff. And somehow they pull this Doug Haig into the picture and say, oh, this guy who works at Mesa Helicopters, right, Boeing Helicopters in Mesa, Arizona, on the side, makes zirconium-tipped incendiary bullets and just happened to sell them.
Hang on to that detail for a second, because I didn't recall knowing that the guy worked for the helicopter company.
Yes, and
That's
so
bizarre.
my hypothesis was this gave the FBI a good reason to be seen poking around Boeing helicopter in Mesa, is that Doug Haig was being investigated for selling zirconium-tipped incendiary rounds to Stephen Paddock. And so, again, the guy works at Boeing Helicopter.
Did you know
Mesa.
he was sentenced?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I don't remember I don't know what the sentence was, but I heard this. Yeah.
Arizona man gets prison time for selling ammo to Las Vegas shooter. Let's see. It says that an Arizona man was sentenced Tuesday, this is June 2020, 13 months in prison for selling illegally manufactured ammunition to the Route 91 Harvest Festival gunman. Douglas Haig of Mesa pleaded guilty in November to a federal charge of manufacturing ammunition without a license in what was the only criminal case to stem from the Las Vegas massacre. Wow.
So he's going to serve 13 months. Mm-hmm.
Continues to be haunted by his encounter with the shooter, whom he first met at a Phoenix gun show. Boy, this sounds like a dramatic tale. Is this a story of a guy who they tell him to go 13 months on your chest, and then you come out and you're still our guy and go do this? That's a sheep dipping operation, in my view.
You're going to have to ask Robin Gritz or somebody. I mean, I don't know how it works on that other side of the.
They're not going to tell you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happens, but clearly,
something happens.
Yeah. All right, let's go back out. Back out to what we were just looking at, because again, there's more lessons learned. Let's go to the next page.
This is his room service order or something.
Yeah, and I want to look at photos with guns in them, so keep going. No guns in that shot. Keep going.
This is van.
All right, now they found tannerite in the van, right?
Mm-hmm. And
we know that there's women's clothes, right? The bag on the right over there, that's women's clothing, right? You see that by the rear wheel of the van?
Yeah, Angel. It's underwear or something,
Angle.
Isn't it?
Is it Angel or Angle? I don't know.
I would think it's a women's underwear store called Angel.
It's a women's, it's like a women's sexy clothes store for, your sexy girlfriend. Yeah. And we know that Stephen Paddock was registered to the room with 3 women were registered to the room. Katie, Joanne, and Laura. Now,
Right.
you know that unlike voting used to be, or they want to be in Georgia, you have
Right.
to show you have to show an identification to
Yeah.
check into a hotel. Now,
They
is
do
that
not.
racist? I don't know.
Well, they
Is
have
it
no
racist?
leeway about it. Mm.
Well, you have to show an ID to check into a hotel, right? But you don't need to show an ID to vote in Georgia if they get their way, right? But you need an ID to check into a Marriott. You need an ID to check into Sheraton. You need an ID to check into a Hilton.
I think you need an
You need
ID to
an
check
ID.
into Motel 6.
You need an ID to rent a car.
All racist.
It seems that way.
You
Seems
need an
that
ID to
way.
drive a car, so that's racist.
You need an ID to buy a six pack. So is that white privilege that really only white people can buy alcohol? I don't know. But the point of the van is they found tannerite in the van. I think it's the next picture. If you go to the next picture, I think you're going to see all the tannerite that they found.
Ah, is that it?
Aha. Yeah. Now, I will tell you the last thing I
Explosive
wanted to.
precursors.
It's called tannerite. All right. The last thing I wanted to bring up to the room was the tannerite.
Is it flammable?
Why? Yeah, well, yeah, and I don't, who's going to steal it? It's not that expensive.
But I
Those
think it's
three
also,
orange things I have.
obviously,
It,
the police consider it an explosive precursor, so just randomly
well,
having it in a hotel.
but you buy it at Cabela's or Bass Pro Shops, right? So it's depends, right? It depends on your perspective. People have to understand this is sold at Cabela's. This is sold at Bass Pro.
Right.
So you can walk into a Bass Pro Shop and buy this just as you see it. It comes in a box, and you open the box, and this is what's in the box, and you mix
Sorry,
it
real
up.
quick, John.
But the point,
You're going to like this.
Yeah.
Another good comment from Pat Max. Pat says that vehicle looks like it would be used to bring a few people out to the desert shooting.
that's the point. That's
Good
what he
point.
thinks he's doing. He's got a minivan. He's got a bunch of guns that he brought up to the room, but he puts them in suitcases because guys like you think guitars are guns. So if he brings them up in gun cases, everybody's going to go, oh my God, what's he doing? So he puts them in suitcases. You put them in suitcases, and nobody loses their minds. Now he thinks he's going out to the desert the next day. And I don't want to bring the tannerite up to the room. Why do I need the tannerite in the room? Nobody's going to
Leave it
break
in
into
the
the
car.
car to steal the tannerite. But somebody's going to break into the car and steal the guns. And if that happens, that's a disaster. So you bring the guns to your room and you leave the tannerite in the car. And there were 2 cars registered in Paddock's name. And Lombardo says we're looking for 2 vehicles. We're looking for a minivan, and we're looking for a Hyundai Tucson or something.
Isn't that also an SUV?
Mini SUV. We know that Paddock had a woman with him who was with that other vehicle who checks in as Mary Lou Danley. And the Mary Lou Danley Players Club card or whatever is found on the bar top. So Katie, Laura, or Joanne is masquerading as Mary Lou Danley. Mary Lou's in the Philippines.
Holy cow.
Mary Lou's in the Philippines, right?
There's a Hyundai Tucson.
And this girl's, all right. So Lombardo comes out and tells us they're looking for 2 vehicles.
I mean, shouldn't they be still
3
parked
women
there? The guy's dead. Oh, but the 3 left.
All right. 3 women are registered. What do you need to register to a hotel room and get a key? Remember, we saw all the keys on the countertop.
Right, they're registered. Why would he do that? If you knew you were going to do a crime, you wouldn't register the people who are your accomplices. You'd just check into the room and say, hey, I'm in room whatever. Come up and shoot everybody.
Yeah. Even if you met 3 really awesome women while you were in Las Vegas and you said, hey, why don't you guys come and hang out? I've got
You wouldn't register them to the room.
It'd be great. Right. Now, If the girls were coming with you tomorrow out to the desert to help host these 4 or 5 guys that are real rollers, these guys have got the Lamborghinis and the McLarens, and these guys have got more cash and they know what to do with, and they want to keep their Arabian horses down the street, and they want to know, do you have a connection so they can get some alfalfa? And they just play the game. And they roll this guy.
What's
and
alfalfa?
He thinks he's going out to the desert. That's what they feed the horses.
Oh.
Do you know how they talk about they're stealing the water in California to go to Saudi Arabia? What they're doing is the Saudi Arabians are buying up the land to grow the hay and using the water to grow the hay and then shipping the hay to Saudi Arabia to feed the horses.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm. So that's how they're stealing the water. But if Stephen Paddock thinks he's going out to the desert like what you and I did, he would leave the Tannerite in the car. He would bring the guns up. He would put the guns in suitcases so as not to alarm everybody. He's not going to kill anybody. The hell, Stephen Paddock isn't going to shoot anybody. Stephen Paddock is going to take a bunch of high-rolling whatever out to the desert to shoot some stuff and maybe sell some guns privately. And in Nevada, that's kind of legal.
The other thing to keep in mind, John, that I think strengthens this hypothesis, we've heard that Stephen Paddock, I don't know if he's wealthy, but he's certainly got money. He's got a couple of houses and, money to do whatever he wants. He's gambling and whatever. So the notion that he might host an excursion along the lines of what you're talking about, take a few $1,000 to spend an afternoon taking some fancy people out to the desert and shoot, seems like the kind of thing a guy like this, he's not really, it's not like he's a lawyer or some kind of person who's going to be busy all day with meetings. He's just going around gambling. And if somebody said, hey, we'll give you $50,000 to take us out into the desert and provide all the bullets and the guns, and we want to buy 2 or 3 of them or whatever, even 10, 20 grand for a day. Because he's driving back and forth to Mesquite or whatever to get more stuff.
He's trying to impress the girls. He's got 3 girls registered to his suite. He sends Mary Lou back to the Philippines. He thinks he's got a new girlfriend. He sends Mary Lou back to the Philippines. This chick is playing him the whole way. He thinks he has a new girlfriend. Sends Mary Lou back with $100,000. She thinks she's yesterday's news.
Fingerprints were on some of the bullets from sticking them into the magazines.
There were over 5,000 rounds found in the place.
Could have been loaded at any time.
3 months ago. You know how many rounds 5,000 rounds are? How much money that is? You know what that costs?
Well, the guy at the shooting range I went to with Larry said, yeah, it went from 16 cents to $1.
And that's for pistol stuff. These are big.
But this would have been 2017.
308 rounds. 308 rounds are closer to $1.50 to $2 a round, right? So when you're talking about 5,000 rounds, you're talking about $7,500 worth of bullets.
That's a lot.
And the magazines, the number of magazines in the room was unbelievable, right? So if he's doing some sort of private gun sale, that's what they talk about, this gun show loophole thing, the private sale of guns. Again, that doesn't necessarily
is that why they have so many gun shows in Las Vegas?
Again, I don't really know. I didn't really dig into that part of all this, but I know that you can open carry in Nevada. I believe you can have a private gun sale in Nevada legally. Was he necessarily breaking the law? I don't think he was, if he thought this is what he was doing. And I think he thought he was doing very much what you and I did. And that's why I wanted to do it with you. I wanted you to see what it was like to have guns in a hotel room. I'm not there to kill anybody. That's not. And there are thousands, tens of thousands of Americans that shoot competitively, that travel around the country, check into hotels with guns.
And the thing that's interesting,
crazy.
John,
yeah,
maybe people could anticipate this, but when we were there and dealing with the stuff, there's a real sense of seriousness. You're dealing with guns, and my inexperienced with them, it's not. It is. You should have a healthy fear, I think, of guns. This is, not something to be just like thrown around in the hotel. You want to make sure everything is not loaded and you're handling it carefully. And like you said, they're expensive. You're not just dropping it. You don't want to dent it or bend it or do anything that's gonna. I mean, when you brought it up, I kept thinking all along. This is like when I used to travel with my cameras, like moving it into the hotel. You're being careful. You don't want to leave it in the car. You don't want to have anybody have access to the hotel room. There's this whole air of extreme caution that sort of envelops the whole operation.
Exactly right. And keep in mind, if you go back to the photos of the hotel room that we were looking at before with the guns strewn all over the place, these guns have optics on them. You don't just throw them around. They've got scopes and optics. Go the other way. There's more pictures in the living room. Go back down. Yeah, there's more living room pictures. I want people to see. That's the bedroom. Keep going. Keep going. Living room. I want to see. There's a couple pictures I think of. Oh, you see all that tannerite? Go back up. Yeah, the orange.
That's a lot.
There you go. Right, and that's in the garage.
But also, by the way, this wouldn't actually, you wouldn't like put this in a car to blow up a car. This is just to like blow up a soda can, right?
Well, those are, I think those are the 2 pounds. It's more
than
than
if you were making a bomb, this is not what you would use.
Yeah. No. But if you were going out to the desert, that would be, that's a fun day in the desert for a bunch of guys right there.
Right.
And each one of those, I think, is like $7.99, $7.99 at Bass Pro. So you're looking at $150 worth of tannerite.
Right.
Okay. So it's the next picture. And I had that exact stuff with me. We just didn't use it. All right. That is the shot that if I were trying to zero in from a hotel room and I had an incendiary round, I would aim at the middle of the tank, right? So center, and then watch for where the thing goes, and then bring my crosshairs to that. And anybody out there who hunts knows exactly what I'm talking about, right? At nighttime, how the hell else am I going to zero in? How am I going to tell where my round struck?
Wow.
Well, if I get a big white board, basically, it looks like a rectangle the way you're looking at it from 700 yards away, and I shoot an incendiary round at it, it's going to go, and we're going to see it. And I zero in from there. From that point forward, is that where the headshots came from?
Huh.
I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer.
I do really like this line of reasoning, John. I mean, this is just so well considered.
All right, let's go back. Yeah, now that shot we talked about, that couldn't have been taken from the room. I'm guessing that was taken right from that parking lot that we were walking.
Do you know what the most telling aspect of this is, John? Because when we've seen it, this explosive char has been cleaned off, but even this lip here, which is probably only a few inches, is totally clean. The explosion took place below the lip. It would have never hit there if it was coming from above this thing.
Correct. That's exactly right. And it's obviously incendiary. You saw what it looked like when a non-incendiary round hit steel, because you shot steel.
It's just
so now you get to see, right? And this is incendiary. You see the carbon buildup from the ignition, right?
So Andy says, but there's no aim point on the tank to get to zero your rifle. Are you saying that once you make the mark on there, that becomes the aim point?
Yeah, so in other words, Andy, I would pick like a virtual aim point in the middle of the tank. I would aim for the vertical center, left, right center of the tank, put my crosshairs there and just hold them there, right? Now I'm going to take the shot. And when I see where the thing goes, I'm going to move my crosshairs to where I saw it do that. And now I'm zeroed in. That's it.
Joseph Fagan says, well done.
Yeah, I do that all the time. All right, let's go to the next slide because there's more lessons learned from our shooting.
We've got only about
Keep
5
going.
minutes left here
I
before
know.
we
Keep
transition
going.
over
Keep
to
going. Keep going.
Patreon.
I know. And I want to show you some quantitative analysis before we do real quick. All right, keep going. One more. Right, go back there. That's your shot, by the way. That's the shot from 32-134
From the
to
window.
the menu from that window with a 308. You'd have to stand there. You know, you're not going to be able to lie down
where
on the
is
floor.
the tank? Here, it's all the way over here. That's a bad shot at the tank. And there's two tanks. It shot the first one, didn't it? Or the second one?
I think the one on the left. I think it's the one on the left that they shot.
Okay.
But that's
It's a bit of an oblique angle from the window, isn't it?
Yeah. All right. We have to show some content on our quantitative analysis. So let's go back to my deck, and we'll get more into this when we go to Patreon only. But go to my deck for a minute.
Yeah. I don't think we've opened that deck yet. Hang on a second.
I know.
Here it is.
Uh-oh. We're out of time, too.
We got
All right.
4 minutes. We can deal with this.
All right. We had a couple rocks come in the last week. A couple close shaves. So the Lyrid meteors are here. The Lyrid meteor showers begin April 16th today. And you've had a couple of early arrivals. These are the guys who come to the party, you know, at 7:30. You make a party for 8 o'clock, and these are the guys who show up at 7:30. And you don't have the hors d'oeuvres out yet, and you're barely dressed, but they're here already. So these are those asteroids. Let's go to the next page. Early arrivals.
Oops.
Next page. It appears that there was an imposter in the chat in one of your videos. You were doing a show.
Two
with
of my videos.
With Larry Klayman. Well, an imposter of me, for sure. Yeah. I don't know about more imposters, but there was an imposter of me, which I was like, what the hell? Somebody used my avatar and my name, and I guess they added a space at the end or something, and starts impersonating me in the chat in Jason's video with Larry Klayman. And hats off to one or two of you guys had mentioned it a week or two ago. And I had shown up to one of the videos. I did participate, and then I left. And then I forget who it was. I think it might have been Scott NYC said something about there's an imposter in the chat. And this was like a week or two ago. And I said, no, that was me. And I said to him, no, that was me. Because I had been in there and I did say something. And then I'm watching you and Klayman, I guess this was yesterday or 2 days ago. Yes, yeah. I forget. And I'm watching this and I'm like, what? I didn't type that. But it looks like I did. And I'm watching it happen in real time. And I'm stunned by it. I'm like, wait, I didn't say that. Wait, how the hell did that happen? And so I sent you a text as you were doing the show with Larry.
Yeah.
And I said, there's somebody chatting in the chat room as me, but that's not me. And I said, I'm not going to chat at all. I'm not going to send any messages in there. So I thought that was pretty weird. I haven't been, I've never had an imposter before.
Yeah, there's something happening in one of the lawsuits that once I entered a motion, it caused an eruption of social engineering activity, because obviously the purpose of these lawsuits is not to cure a legal injury, but to just harass me, use up my resources, waste my time, and try to destroy Crowdsource the Truth. This is why it's so important for viewers who appreciate the channel and wanted to stick around to become sponsors on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And John, we do have to wrap it up in a minute, where people are going to be able to see the simulcast also on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen and patreon.com/IamJohnCullen. So one last thing here.
Well, we have the evidence locker is now available to our subscribers. And we've already had a couple of subscribers take advantage of it, and they've already downloaded their files.
Now, this is available to John
gigabytes.
Cullen subscribers. This is exclusive to people who are sponsoring on Patreon or subscribestar/IamJohnCullen. This is material that you've assembled.
That's right. And these are the show notes from 2020 as you and I investigated this coronavirus outbreak, and everything before it, during it, through it, including executive orders, official documents, spreadsheets, charts, and it's over 5 GB of content. And subscribers at $25 a month who pay for a year in advance get over 5 GB of content. And
Wow,
people are already
nicely done.
downloading it. People are
Great.
already getting that. And we're going to get into the quantitative analysis. We're going to look at Michigan. We're going to look at the data, the numbers, and the differences between quantitative and qualitative analysis. Qualitative analysis is like the Tony Awards.
I got to stop you. We need this time to reset the system, so we're out right now. We've got 3 minutes. We start about a minute late, so there we go. People are going to be able to catch up with us on Subscribestar and Patreon. I want to thank all the generous sponsors who are with us already and encourage people who are enjoying this analysis and enjoying this show to join us on Patreon and Subscribestar.